Captain Vextai stood on the bridge of the Starweaver and watched the stars through the wide viewing screen. His scaled hands moved over the control panel as he checked their position once more. The Zelkin fleet had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade, and their reputation as warriors spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Yet here they were, approaching something that made even the bravest species in the galaxy nervous. The navigation charts showed a large area of space, marked in red. Warnings covered the display in dozens of different alien languages. Some were simple warnings to stay away. Others were more detailed accounts of battles gone wrong. All of them pointed to the same conclusion. The species that lived in this region was dangerous beyond measure. Commander Zira approached from the communications station. Her silver scales caught the light from the bridge displays as she moved. She carried a datapad filled with intercepted messages from nearby trading posts and space stations. The chatter was constant and always about the same thing: humans and their impossible nature. "Captain, I have more reports," Zira said as she handed him the datapad. 3 different merchant vessels reported strange encounters in the past month. They all described the same thing. The humans seem friendly at first, but there is something underneath that friendliness that makes experienced traders uncomfortable. Vextai scrolled through the messages. One merchant captain from the Korak system described meeting a human trader who smiled constantly while discussing business. The human had mentioned in passing that his homeworld had been attacked by pirates the previous year. When asked what happened to the pirates, the human's smile never wavered as he explained that they hunted down every single pirate ship and destroyed them completely. Not captured. Destroyed. Another report came from a diplomatic vessel that had tried to establish trade relations with a human colony. The negotiations went well until the diplomats mentioned that their species sometimes took prisoners as labor during conflicts. The humans politely ended the meeting immediately. Later, long-range sensors detected massive military buildups around every human settlement in that sector. The message was clear: stay away. "What about the military reports?" Vextai asked as he continued reading. Zira activated a holographic display that showed various battle recordings and tactical analyses. "This is where it gets interesting, Captain. Every major military power in the galaxy has the same assessment. The humans are not the strongest species. Their technology is not the most advanced. Their ships are not the fastest. But every single military commander agrees on one thing: humans are absolutely not to be engaged in combat under any circumstances." The hologram showed a recording from Admiral Corvus of the Hegemony fleet. The Hegemony was known throughout the galaxy for their brutal efficiency in warfare. They had crushed rebellions on dozens of worlds, and their battle fleets were feared everywhere. Yet here was their most decorated admiral, his voice shaking as he spoke. "I watched a human vessel take damage that should have destroyed it completely," Admiral Corvus said in the recording. "The hull was breached in 12 places. Life support was failing. Any rational species would have surrendered or retreated. Instead, the human captain ordered his crew to continue fighting. They used their dying ship as a weapon. They rammed it directly into our flagship while detonating their reactor core. 1,700 Hegemony soldiers died in that explosion. The human ship had a crew of only 43. The recording continued with more details that made even experienced Zelkin warriors uncomfortable. The humans had turned their own mortality into a tactical advantage. They fought with the understanding that death was acceptable as long as their enemies died with them. This was not the behavior of a species that could be reasoned with or intimidated. "Show me the Korthax report," Vextai ordered. The Korthax Empire was perhaps the most militaristic society in the galaxy. Their entire culture revolved around strength and conquest. They had never met a species they could not defeat or force into submission. Their report on humans was brief and absolute. Contact forbidden under all circumstances. The report detailed a single encounter between a Korthax battle group and a human research vessel. The research vessel was unarmed and carried only scientists studying stellar phenomena. When the Korthax demanded surrender, the human captain politely declined. The Korthax opened fire, expecting quick surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, the human research vessel began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple: their location, the number of attackers, and a request for any human vessels in the area to remember the crew of the Starfinder. Then the research vessel flew directly into the largest Korthax battleship, destroying both vessels instantly. Within 6 hours, 27 human warships arrived in the system. They did not attempt communication. They did not demand surrender. They systematically hunted down every Korthax vessel in the sector and destroyed them. When Korthax reinforcements arrived, they found their entire battle group eliminated and a simple message broadcast on repeat. "You started this." "Captain," Zira said quietly, "there are over 200 similar reports in our database. Every species that has encountered humans in combat reports the same behavior. They do not fight to win territory or resources. They fight to ensure their enemies are completely destroyed, regardless of the cost to themselves." Vextai studied the tactical displays with growing interest rather than concern. The Zelkan military had never encountered a challenge they could not overcome through superior strategy and firepower. Every species in the galaxy had survival instincts that could be exploited. Fear of death was universal among intelligent life. It was the foundation of all military strategy. These reports assume that human behavior cannot be countered, Vexatai said finally. Every species has weaknesses. Every species has limits. The humans may be willing to die, but they are still just one species occupying a small region of space. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Their numbers are limited. He activated the ship's long-range sensors and focused them on the third planet of the Sol system. Earth appeared on the display as a blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. Orbital installations were visible, but they appeared to be simple space stations and defensive platforms. Nothing that would challenge a Zelkan battlecruiser. "Commander, set course for Earth," Vextai ordered. "We will make contact with these humans and determine the truth behind all these stories. Perhaps we can establish the first successful diplomatic relations with this species. The Zelkan Empire could benefit greatly from understanding what makes them so feared." Zira hesitated before responding. "Captain, with respect, perhaps we should request additional ships before making contact. Every report suggests that approaching humans without overwhelming force is extremely dangerous." Vexatai's scales rippled with amusement. The idea that the mighty Star Weaver would need additional support to handle a single primitive world was ridiculous. The Zelkan ship carried enough firepower to reduce a planet's surface to molten rock. Their shields could withstand anything short of stellar-level energy output. Their weapons were designed to penetrate any known defensive system. "Commander, we have conquered worlds with populations in the billions using only this ship," he replied. "If the humans prove hostile, we will demonstrate Zelkan superiority and convince them to be reasonable. If they prove cooperative, we will establish trade relations and learn more about their unusual military tactics. Either outcome serves the Empire." The Star Weaver turned toward the Sol system and engaged its faster-than-light drive. Behind them, the warning beacons continued broadcasting their messages in dozens of languages. All of them said the same thing. In different words, humans are off limits. Even the courageous don't cross that line. Vextai ignored them all. The Star Weaver dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Captain Vextai immediately ordered a full sensor sweep of the area. What he saw confirmed his expectations about human technology. Chemical rockets carried small payloads between planets. Nuclear reactors powered their space stations. Their defensive platforms used primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy shields. "Scan complete, Captain," reported the sensor officer. "I count 47 orbital installations around the third planet. Most appear to be civilian research stations or manufacturing facilities. I detect only 12 military platforms, each mounting weapons that would barely scratch our hull plating." Vextai nodded with satisfaction. The humans had built an impressive civilization for such a primitive species, but their military capabilities were exactly what he had expected: ancient technology that posed no real threat to a modern warship. "Open a communication channel to Earth," he ordered. "Let us introduce ourselves properly." The main display activated and showed the image of a human female in military uniform. She appeared middle-aged with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm brown eyes. Her name and rank appeared on the display: Admiral Kate Morrison, Earth Defense Force. "This is Admiral Morrison speaking for Earth Defense Command," she said in a pleasant voice. "Welcome to our solar system. May I ask your intentions here?" Vextai was surprised by the casual tone. Most species showed immediate fear or submission when contacted by an unknown warship. This human seemed to be treating his arrival as a routine. "Diplomatic visit? I am Captain Vextai of the Zelkan Empire," he replied. "We have come to establish contact with your species and discuss possible diplomatic relations." Admiral Morrison smiled slightly. "That's wonderful, Captain. We're always interested in meeting new species. However, I should mention that entering our system without prior authorization is considered a military matter under Earth law. Would you be willing to withdraw to a safe distance while we arrange proper diplomatic protocols?" The request was polite, but firm. Vextai felt his first moment of irritation. No species had ever asked him to withdraw from anywhere. The Zelkan Empire went where it pleased and took what it wanted. "Admiral Morrison, I believe you misunderstand the situation," Vextai said, allowing a hint of threat to enter his voice. "The Star Weaver is a battle cruiser of the Zelkan Imperial Fleet. We do not withdraw at the request of inferior civilizations. You will provide us with complete information about your military capabilities and industrial capacity. Any attempt to refuse will be considered an act of hostility." The change in Admiral Morrison's expression was subtle, but noticeable. Her smile faded, and her eyes grew cold. When she spoke again, her voice remained perfectly calm, but something underneath had changed completely. "Captain Vextai, I need to inform you that you have just made this a military matter," she said quietly. "I'm going to ask you one more. Time to please leave human space. This is not a threat. This is me trying to prevent something that neither of us wants to happen." Vextai laughed at what he perceived as an empty bluff. "Admiral, your entire defense fleet could not damage this ship. Your weapons are centuries behind our technology. Your shields would not stop our lightest armaments. I suggest you reconsider your position before we demonstrate the futility of resistance." Admiral Morrison was quiet for several seconds. When she spoke again, her voice carried a sadness that Vextai did not understand. "Sir, you just threatened to attack civilian populations," she said. That crosses a line that we cannot allow anyone to cross. I'm truly sorry that diplomatic contact has to end this way." The communication channel closed before Vextai could respond. He stared at the blank display with growing anger. No species had ever dared to simply cut off communication with a Zelkin warship. The disrespect was intolerable. "Weapons officer, target the largest human space station," he ordered. "Fire a warning shot across their bow. Show them what they are dealing with." The Starweaver's main cannon discharged a bolt of coherent energy that passed within a few kilometers of Research Station 7. The blast was powerful enough to disable the station's communications and damage their outer hull. It was intended as a demonstration of superior firepower that would bring the humans to their senses. Instead, something happened that made Vextai's blood run cold. The humans aboard the damaged station did not evacuate. They did not surrender. They did not even try to communicate. Instead, they began launching escape pods, but not to save themselves. The pods were being sent away from the battle zone to prevent their families from witnessing what came next. A new voice came over the communication system. Lieutenant Ryan Hayes identified himself as the commander of Research Station 7. His voice was steady despite the fact that his station was badly damaged and losing atmosphere. "Zelkin vessel, you just fired on a civilian installation that houses 300 researchers and their families," Hayes said calmly. "My 8-year-old daughter attends school here. That was a mistake." Vextai watched in disbelief as the damaged space station began changing course. Instead of drifting away from the Starweaver, it was moving toward the much larger warship. Emergency thrusters that should have been used for evacuation were instead pushing the station into a collision course. "What are they doing?" demanded Commander Zira from her position at the tactical display. The answer came from Lieutenant Hayes as Research Station 7 continued its impossible approach. "My crew and I have voted unanimously. We're going to ram your ship and detonate. Our reactor core on impact. Our sacrifice will disable your shields and give Earth's defense fleet a chance to destroy you completely." Vextai could not believe what he was hearing. The humans were going to deliberately destroy their own station and kill everyone aboard just to damage his ship. No rational species would make such a choice. The tactical advantage was minimal compared to the cost in lives. "Lieutenant Hayes, you are committing suicide for no strategic gain," Vextai said over the open channel. "Your station's destruction will barely damage our shields. Your deaths will be meaningless." Hayes's response revealed the fundamental difference between human thinking and that of every other species in the galaxy. "Captain, you attacked a station full of children," Hayes said quietly. "That means this isn't about strategic gain anymore. This is about making sure you understand that threatening our families has consequences. We're not trying to defeat you with this attack. We're trying to make you vulnerable so that others can finish what you started." The collision alarm began, sounding throughout the Starweaver as Research Station 7 continued its approach. Vextai ordered evasive action, but the human station adjusted course to match. Its crew was manually controlling the collision trajectory to ensure maximum damage to the Zelkin warship. "Captain," the tactical officer reported, "the station will impact our forward shield generators in 30 seconds. If their reactor core detonates on contact, it will overload our entire defensive grid." Vextai finally understood that the humans were not bluffing. They were actually going to sacrifice 300 lives just to damage his ship. The realization filled him with a mixture of horror and disbelief. What kind of species chose mutual destruction over surrender? Research Station 7 struck the Star Weaver's shields at maximum velocity. The impact alone would have been survivable, but Lieutenant Hayes and his crew had timed their reactor overload perfectly. The explosion tore through the Zelkan ships, forward defenses, and sent shockwaves throughout the hull. As damage reports flooded the bridge, Vextai realized that Admiral Morrison had been trying to warn him. The humans were not like other species. They did not fight to win. They fought to ensure that anyone who threatened their people paid a price that would deter others from making the same mistake. The tactical display lit up with new contacts emerging from Earth's atmosphere. Dozens of human ships were launching toward the Star Weaver. None of them were trying to communicate or demand surrender. They were simply coming to finish what Lieutenant Hayes had started. The first wave of human ships reached the Star Weaver within minutes of Research Station 7's destruction. Captain Vextai expected to see sleek military vessels like those used by other advanced civilizations. Instead, he found himself facing craft that looked like they had been designed specifically for ramming attacks. "Captain, I'm reading 12 human vessels on approach," reported the tactical officer. "Their design is unusual. Reinforced hulls, minimal defensive systems, and reactor cores that appear to be modified for overload protocols." Each human ship broadcast the same message as they approached. "For Lieutenant Ryan Hayes and the children of Research Station 7. The words were spoken calmly, without anger or hatred, but with a determination that made Vexitai's scales crawl with unease. The lead human vessel identified itself as the Retribution under the command of Captain Lisa Parker. Her voice came over the communication system with the same disturbing calm that Admiral Morrison had displayed. "Zelkan vessel, you have committed an act of war against Earth," Captain Parker announced. "We are not here to accept your surrender. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to ensure that you never threaten another civilian population." Vextai tried to respond, but Captain Parker continued speaking as if she had not heard him. "I want you to understand something about humans," she said. "We do not fight for territory or resources or political advantage. We fight to protect our families and to ensure that those who threaten them learn never to do so again. Lieutenant Hayes and his crew have shown you what we are willing to sacrifice. Now we will show you what we are willing to do to others." The Retribution accelerated toward the Star Weaver at maximum speed. Vextai ordered his weapons officer to target the approaching ship, but Captain Parker had already begun evasive maneuvers that defied conventional tactics. Instead of trying to avoid the Zelkan weapons, she was flying directly toward them while simultaneously adjusting her ship's reactor output. "She's going to ram us," Commander Zira reported with disbelief. "The human captain is flying her ship directly into our main gun batteries." The Retribution struck the Star Weaver's weapons array at incredible velocity. The impact should have destroyed the human ship instantly, but Captain Parker had timed her reactor overload to occur at the moment of collision. The explosion tore through the Zelkan ship's primary armaments and left massive breaches in the hull. Before Vextai could assess the damage, the second human vessel began its attack run. Captain Mike Torres of the Vengeance followed the same impossible strategy as Captain Parker. He flew his ship directly into the Star Weaver's shield generators while broadcasting a simple message. "This is for the 300 souls you murdered." The pattern continued with each successive human ship. None of them attempted conventional combat tactics. None of them tried to disable the Star Weaver and capture it. Every human captain chose to destroy their own vessel in order to inflict maximum damage on the Zelkan warship. Captain Amy Rodriguez of the Defiance took a different approach. Her ship was larger than the others and carried a modified nuclear warhead that she had personally armed for manual detonation. She flew her vessel close enough to the Starweaver to ensure that the explosion would penetrate the inner hull. Then, broadcast her final message. "Tell the galaxy what happened here," Captain Rodriguez said calmly. "Tell them that humans do not forgive those who murder children. Tell them that we will follow you to the end of the universe if necessary." The nuclear detonation carved a massive crater in the Starweaver's side and destroyed 3 entire decks. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, but the damage was catastrophic. More than half of the ship's systems were offline, and the structural integrity was compromised. "Damage report," Vextai ordered as his bridge crew struggled to restore. "Basic functions. Hull breaches on 12 decks," reported the engineering officer. "Main engines offline. Weapon systems destroyed. Life support failing in sections 7 through 15. Sir, we need to evacuate immediately." Vextai could not understand what he was witnessing. The humans had sacrificed 11 ships and their entire crews just to damage his vessel. No species in the galaxy fought with such disregard for their own survival. It was tactically insane and strategically pointless. "Why are they doing this?" he demanded of no one in particular. They could have negotiated. They could have surrendered and saved their lives. Why are they choosing to die? Commander Zira studied the tactical display with growing comprehension of human psychology. "Captain, I think I understand. The humans are not trying to defeat us. In conventional terms, they are demonstrating that attacking them is too costly to be worthwhile. They want the galaxy to know that threatening humans results in mutual destruction regardless of technological superiority." The communication system activated once more. Admiral Morrison appeared on the display, her expression sad but resolute. Behind her, Vextai could see the Earth Defense Command Center, where dozens of officers were coordinating the attack. "Captain, Vextai, I tried to warn you," Admiral Morrison said quietly. "I gave you the chance to leave peacefully. You chose to fire on a civilian station instead. Now you've learned why the galaxy considers humans off-limits." Vextai struggled to find words. "Admiral, your people have committed suicide for no strategic advantage. You have destroyed your own ships and killed your own crews. What have you gained?" Admiral Morrison's smile was cold and utterly without mercy. "Captain, we've gained something more valuable than military victory. We've gained a reputation. Every species in the galaxy will hear about what happened here today. They will learn that attacking humans results in consequences that no rational being would accept." The tactical display showed more human ships launching from Earth's surface. These vessels were different from the ramming craft. They appeared to be long-range pursuit ships designed for extended operations far from home. "The ships you see now are not here to destroy your vessel," Admiral Morrison continued. "They are here to follow you home. If you survive today's battle, they will track your ship to Zelkan space and deliver a message to your people. That message will be simple. You attacked our children, so now we know where you live." Vextai felt ice form in his veins as he realized the full scope of human strategy. They were not content with merely defeating his ship. They intended to follow him home and demonstrate to the entire Zelkan Empire that threatening humans brought consequences that extended far beyond the immediate battle. "This is insane," he whispered. "You cannot win a war against the entire Zelkan Empire. We have hundreds of battle cruisers and thousands of support vessels." Admiral Morrison nodded calmly. "You're absolutely right, Captain. We cannot defeat the Zelkan Empire in conventional warfare. But we don't need to defeat you. We only need to make victory too expensive for you to pursue." She gestured to something off-screen, and the display changed to show Earth's orbital defense platforms. Vextai had dismissed them earlier as primitive installations with obsolete weapons. Now he saw that they were not defense platforms at all. They were mass drivers capable of accelerating asteroids to relativistic speeds. "Captain, what you're looking at is humanity's final argument," Admiral Morrison said softly. "If the Zelkan Empire decides to invade human space, we will use those installations to accelerate asteroids toward every Zelkan world. We will turn entire planets into molten slag rather than allow them to be used as bases for attacks against Earth." The communication ended, leaving Vextai alone with the terrible knowledge of what he had unleashed. The humans were not just willing to die in battle. They were prepared to commit species-wide suicide rather than submit to conquest. They had weaponized their own extinction and pointed it at anyone who threatened them. As the Star Weaver's remaining systems failed one by one, Vextai finally understood why humans were off-limits across the galaxy. It was not because they could not be defeated. It was because defeating them required being willing to accept losses that no rational species would tolerate. The Star Weaver limped toward the edge of the Sol system with failing engines and a hull that groaned with each maneuver. Captain Vextai had ordered emergency repairs, but the damage was too extensive for field maintenance. Half his crew was dead or injured, and the remaining systems were operating at barely 30% capacity. "Captain, we're being followed," Commander Zira reported from the tactical station. 3 human vessels are maintaining pursuit course at maximum sensor range. Vextai studied the display showing the pursuing ships. They were sleek vessels designed for long-range operations, each carrying enough supplies and fuel for extended missions far from Earth. Their configuration suggested they were built specifically for tracking and pursuit rather than direct combat. "Are they attempting to communicate?" he asked. "No, sir. They are maintaining complete communication silence while following our exact course. Their formation suggests they intend to track us all the way to Zelkan space." The implications were terrifying. The humans were not content with damaging his ship and forcing him to retreat. They intended to follow him home and demonstrate to the Zelkan Empire that attacking humans brought consequences beyond the immediate battle. Every Zelkan world would know that their military had been defeated by a primitive species using suicide tactics. "Emergency message to Zelkan High Command," Vextai ordered. "Priority Alpha classification. Inform them that first contact with humans has resulted in catastrophic failure. Recommend immediate fleet mobilization to defend our home systems." As the communication was prepared, Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the main display once more. She looked tired, as if the battle had taken an emotional toll despite the human victory. Behind her, Earth Defense Command continued its normal operations with the casual efficiency of an organization that had just handled a routine threat. "Captain Vextai, I want you to understand something about humanity before you report back to your superiors," Admiral Morrison said calmly. "What happened today was not an unusual response by our standards. We classify this engagement as a minor border skirmish in our records." Vextai could not hide his shock. "Minor, Admiral? You sacrificed 11 ships and their crews to damage my vessel. Hundreds of your people died in this battle." Admiral Morrison nodded sadly. "Yes, they did, and their sacrifice will be honored in our memory. But, Captain, you need to understand the scale of human military preparation. The ships that attacked you today represent less than 1% of Earth's defense fleet. We maintain over 10,000 vessels crewed by volunteers who have signed lifetime service contracts. The tactical display changed to show orbital shipyards around Earth that Vexatai had not detected during his initial scans. Massive construction facilities were building new vessels at an incredible rate. Completed ships moved in formations that suggested a level of military organization far beyond what he had expected from a primitive species. Every human pilot trained specifically for ramming attacks, Admiral Morrison continued. Our military academies teach courses on acceptable losses and tactical sacrifice. Our engineers design ships with overload protocols intended to maximize damage when the vessel is destroyed. Captain, what you witnessed today is not desperate improvisation. It is standard human military doctrine. Vextai felt his worldview crumbling as he absorbed this information. Why would any species build their entire military strategy around mutual destruction? Admiral Morrison was quiet for several seconds before answering. Because, Captain, we learned long ago that survival sometimes requires being willing to pay any price to protect what matters most. Every human child learns about the great wars of our history, when entire nations sacrificed millions of lives to defeat enemies who threatened their way of life. We have simply applied those lessons to interstellar warfare. The display changed again to show archived footage of human conflicts throughout their history. Vextai watched scenes of human soldiers charging into overwhelming enemy fire, pilots flying damaged aircraft into enemy targets, and entire cities choosing destruction rather than surrender. The pattern was consistent across thousands of years of human warfare. We do not fight to conquer territory or gain resources, Admiral Morrison explained. We fight to ensure that our enemies understand the cost of threatening us. Every battle, every sacrifice, every ship that rams an enemy vessel sends the same message to the galaxy: humans are too dangerous to attack. Commander Zira approached with an intercepted communication from one of the pursuing human vessels. The message was brief and directed to Zelkan High Command, rather than the Starweaver itself. This is Captain Steve Wilson of the Earthship Relentless. The message began. We are following the Zelkan vessel that attacked Research Station 7. We will track this ship to its home system and deliver formal notice that the Zelkan Empire has committed an act of war against humanity. We recommend that Zelkan leadership prepare for extended negotiations regarding reparations for the 300 civilians killed in their unprovoked attack. The message was polite and professional, but the underlying threat was clear. The humans intended to follow the Starweaver all the way home and confront the Zelkan Empire directly. They were turning a single failed first contact into a potential interstellar incident. Captain, we're receiving another transmission, the communications officer reported. This one is from Admiral Morrison, but it's directed to Zelkan High Command rather than us. The display activated to show Admiral Morrison speaking directly to the Zelkan military leadership. Her tone was diplomatic but firm, and her message was designed to prevent the escalation of hostilities while making human capabilities absolutely clear. Zelkan High Command, I am Admiral Kate Morrison of Earth Defense Force, she began. Your vessel entered our system without authorization and fired on a civilian installation, killing 300 non-combatants, including children. Under human military law, this constitutes an act of war that demands response. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle before continuing. However, Earth recognizes that first contact situations can lead to misunderstandings. Admiral Morrison continued. We are prepared to consider this incident resolved if the Zelkan Empire agrees to 3 conditions. First, formal acknowledgement that attacking civilian populations violates interstellar law. Second, reparations for the families of those killed in your attack. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic protocols to prevent future incidents. The message was reasonable by diplomatic standards, but Vextai could see the trap it represented. Accepting the terms would require the Zelkan Empire to admit that they had been defeated by a primitive species. Rejecting the terms would mean war with humans who had just demonstrated their willingness to accept any level of casualties to achieve their objectives. If these conditions are not acceptable, Admiral Morrison concluded, then Earth will consider the Zelkan Empire a hostile force and respond accordingly. Our pursuit vessels will track your damaged ship home and establish a permanent monitoring presence in Zelkan space. Any further acts of aggression will result in immediate retaliation against Zelkan military targets. The communication ended, leaving Vextai to contemplate the full scope of his failure. He had come to the Sol system expecting to intimidate a primitive species into submission. Instead, he had triggered a diplomatic crisis that could lead to war between the Zelkan Empire and a species that treated mutual destruction as acceptable military strategy. "Sir, we're approaching the edge of the solar system," reported the navigation officer. "The human pursuit vessels are still following at maximum sensor range." Vextai looked at the tactical display showing the 3 human ships that intended to track him across interstellar space. They represented something that no Zelkan military commander had ever faced, an enemy that could not be deterred by superior firepower because they were willing to die to achieve their objectives. "Set course for Zelkan Prime," he ordered quietly. "Maximum speed our damaged engines can sustain, and prepare a full report for High Command. They need to understand what we're dealing with before those human ships arrive in our space." As the Star Weaver limped away from Earth, Vextai realized that he had learned the most important lesson of his military career. Humans were off limits, not because they could not be defeated, but because defeating them required being willing to accept casualties that no rational species would tolerate. The galaxy had learned this lesson through hard experience, and now the Zelkan Empire would have to learn it as well. The Star Weaver arrived at Zelkan Prime 3 weeks later, its hull scarred and its crew traumatized by their encounter with humanity. Captain Vextai stood before the High Command in the Great Council Chamber, facing questions from the most powerful military leaders in the Zelkan Empire. His report had already been distributed, but the council members struggled to believe what they were hearing. "Captain Vextai, you expect us to accept that a single primitive world defeated a battle cruiser of the Imperial fleet?" asked General Cormax, his scales dark with displeasure. "Your report describes tactics that no rational species would employ. Deliberate suicide attacks serve no strategic purpose." Vextai had spent the journey home trying to understand human psychology himself. The explanation he had developed was disturbing in its implications for galactic warfare. "General, the humans do not consider death in battle to be suicide," he replied carefully. "They view it as an acceptable cost for protecting their people and deterring future attacks. Every human pilot who died in the engagement believed their sacrifice would save thousands of lives by demonstrating the futility of threatening Earth." Elder Corvin, the oldest military leader in Zelkan history, listened to the discussion with growing recognition. His ancient eyes held knowledge that younger officers lacked, and his expression suggested familiarity with the human strategy. "Captain, describe the human vessels that pursued you from their system," Elder Corvin requested. Vextai activated a holographic display showing the 3 ships that had followed the Star Weaver across interstellar space. They were still in orbit around Zelkan Prime, maintaining a respectful distance but making their presence clearly known to anyone monitoring the system. They call themselves diplomatic observers, Vextai explained, but their configuration suggests extended combat capability. They have been broadcasting continuous messages to our government requesting formal negotiations regarding the incident at Research Station 7. Elder Corvin stood slowly and approached the holographic display. His movements carried the weight of centuries, and when he spoke, his voice held the authority of someone who,